Welcome to the Sand Science Experience podcast, where we explore the latest and most exciting papers and preprints in science. If you find value in these deep dives, please hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with your friends and family. It really supports the Sand Science Experience. Okay, so today we are undertaking a critical deep dive into one of the, most popular dietary strategies around, time-restricted eating, or TRE. The popular appeal is pretty simple, right? You just restrict the hours you eat. And the initial evidence, well, it looked promising.
Yeah, the short-term human trials and animal studies, they did show some clear metabolic benefits, improvements in blood glucose, lipid profiles, things like that.
But for you, the learner, the really big question has always been hanging there. Does changing when you eat actually impact how long you live?
Exactly. Does it affect long-term human longevity,
Yeah.
mortality? Until recently, the evidence connecting TRE to those long-term outcomes was pretty murky, honestly.
So our deep dive today focuses on a really massive prospective cohort study. It used nationally representative data, specifically the NHANES surveys.
Like,
And it linked eating window duration directly to mortality over a significant period.
that's the key. This wasn't some small trial. They followed over 33,000 U.S. adults.
Wow.
Yeah, for a median of 8 years. And the study's strength really comes from using this huge group and detailed records to track exactly when people ate, and then see if that timing correlated with their risk of death from any cause.
And the primary finding is fascinating. It really challenges the common advice you hear online about, really aggressive fasting.
Absolutely. The researchers found the relationship between your eating window duration and your mortality risk isn't linear at all. They described it as a clear U-shaped curve, which means basically risk increases when the window is too short and also when it's too long.
Okay, let's unpack this.
A U-shape.
Wow.
Oh.
So much for the idea that shorter is always better. Let's start at the bottom of that U then, the sweet spot, where risk is lowest.
Okay. The data clearly showed the lowest risk for all-cause mortality was right there, at a moderate eating window. So people who consumed all their calories within a specific sort of balanced time frame, they had the best long-term outcomes.
Okay, give us the numbers. What's that Goldilocks zone, the optimal range?
Based on this population data, the optimal zone seems to be approximately 11 to 12 hours per day.
11 to 12. That feels surprisingly long compared to what you usually hear.
Right.
People hear TRE and they jump straight to 16.8, maybe even 18.6. So if 11 or 12 is optimal, why the focus on these ultra short windows?
Well, I think part of it is how you define eating window. Here, they were very precise. It's the time between the first and last consumption of any food or drink with more than 0 calories within 24 hours.
Any calories. Yeah.
And because this is based on 2 detailed 24-hour recalls, using that high-quality USDA method, the AMPM, well, that 11 to 12-hour sweet spot is a pretty robust finding. It suggests maybe that consistency in just avoiding late-night eating might be more important than extreme fasting.
Okay, this is where it gets really critical for people doing those aggressive diets. Let's look at the left side of that U-curve, the sharp increase in risk, the radical fasters, the 16.8, 18.6 folks. What did the study find for people with those ultra-short windows?
Yeah, the risk spikes quite dramatically there. Shorter windows, specifically 8 hours per day or less, were linked to a significant increase in risk. Compared to the reference group, the ones eating within 12 to 13 hours, this ultra-short group had a 34% greater all-cause mortality risk.
34%. Wait, the hazard ratio is 1.34. Can you maybe put that into simpler terms for the listener? Like, practically speaking, what's that increased risk mean?
Right. It means, statistically speaking, you're about 34% more likely to die from any cause over the study period, roughly 8 years, compared to someone eating in a normal 12-hour window. Assuming other things are equal, of course.
That's quite a number, 34%. That really demands attention.
A huge finding, yeah.
And this risk wasn't the same for everyone, right? The subgroup analysis showed differences.
That's absolutely crucial. This higher risk for very short eating windows was particularly noticeable in certain groups. It was significant in older adults, those aged 65 and older. They showed at least 30% higher all-cause mortality.
So if, say, your grandparent reads somewhere that 18.6 is great for weight loss, this study suggests that could actually be seriously risky for their health. Is that a fair takeaway?
That is the implication from this data, yes, particularly concerning their heart health. Those short windows, 8 hours or less, were linked to over 50% higher cardiovascular mortality risk among older adults and also among men and white participants.
Over 50%. Wow. Why? Why would older adults be less resilient to these long fasting periods? What's the biology there, the mechanism?
Well, there are likely a couple of things going on. First, just practically, it can be hard to get enough total energy and all the necessary micronutrients squeezed into a tight 8-hour window, especially for older people who might have lower appetites or specific dietary needs anyway.
Makes sense.
Second, physiologically, longer fasting can be a real metabolic stressor. As we age, our natural circadian rhythms shift, and baseline cortisol levels often go up. So a long daily fast challenges systems that might already be a bit taxed, reducing their ability to handle that stress effectively.
Okay. Now let's flip to the other side of the U-curve. The long eating windows. What happens if your eating period stretches out too long? Grazing from breakfast at 7 a.m. until a late night snack at 11 p.m.
Right, that puts you on the right-hand side of the U. The risk climbs again there, too, although maybe not quite as sharply as with the ultra-short window. The longest eating window category they looked at, defined as 15 hours per day or more, was associated with a 25% higher risk of all-cause mortality.
25% higher. That sounds immediately like a chrononutrition problem. Like, it's not total calories necessarily, but the timing messing with your body's natural rhythm.
Exactly, that's the likely mechanism cited. Very long windows almost inevitably mean late-night eating, and that causes circadian misalignment. Think about your insulin sensitivity. It's naturally higher in the morning, ready for food, and then it decreases through the day.
Okay.
So when you eat late at night, you're basically forcing your metabolic systems to work hard when they should be winding down for rest.
Oh.
And that misalignment is linked to things like impaired glucose tolerance and worse lipid profiles.
We saw the short window risk hit older adults, men, and white participants harder. Did the long window risk, the grazing risk, show similar patterns?
It did show some specificity, yes. That long window risk seemed primarily driven by higher cardiovascular mortality. And interestingly, that association was, again, notably more pronounced among white participants.
Huh. That's specific. White participants and men showing higher cardiovascular risk from both extremes, very short and very long windows. Did the study suggest why?
The paper didn't really offer a definitive biological reason for those specific racial or sex differences. That's often a limitation with observational data like this. They did note that white participants were the largest group, giving more statistical power there. But it does suggest that maybe genetics or environment or socioeconomic factors not fully captured in the analysis might play a role in how different groups handle these extreme eating schedules.
Right.
It really underscores the need for more personalized nutrition research. One size definitely doesn't fit all here.
So putting this all together, what's the main message for someone thinking about time-based eating for health? We've got this clear statistical findings supporting an 11 to 12-hour Goldilocks zone, and then these two high-risk extremes.
Well, the statistical power is quite strong given the source. It's nationally representative NHANES data, which helps with generalizability, and they use that really detailed USDA method, the AMPM, for the dietary recalls, which is good for accurately capturing the timing of intake.
But, okay, critical thinking time. No study's perfect. What are the key limitations we absolutely need to keep in mind here?
The big one, always, is that it's an observational design.
Right.
We're talking associations, correlations, not proven cause and effect. Even though they controlled for a lot, smoking, exercise, diet quality, you can't rule out residual confounding entirely. Maybe something else they didn't measure explains the link.
Right. And the diet data itself. Just 2 24-hour recalls at the very beginning. That seems like it might not capture the whole picture over 8 years. People change habits.
That's a very valid point. Relying on only 2 24-hour dietary recalls at baseline is a limitation. They didn't track changes over the follow-up. However, the researchers make a really important technical point about this. This kind of limitation, this measurement error or inconsistency over time, it usually attenuates the findings.
Attenuates, meaning it weakens them.
Exactly.
Right.
It typically biases the observed associations towards the null, towards finding no effect.
Wait, so the fact they only had baseline data might mean the real risks associated with these extreme windows could actually be even higher than the 34% and 25% reported.
That's the implication, yes. The fact that they found such significant associations despite this limitation, despite the potential noise in the data, it actually suggests the underlying relationship between extreme eating windows and mortality risk is likely quite robust and perhaps even stronger than what they measured.
Huh. That's a really powerful nuance. Okay, so this deep dive has really shifted the conversation around TRE. It's clearly not just about fasting for as long as possible.
It certainly seems that way. The core takeaway is pretty clear. A moderate 11 to 12-hour eating window seems to be linked with the lowest mortality risk in this large U.S. cohort. Going much shorter, 8 hours or less, or much longer, 15 hours or more, is associated with significantly higher all-cause and particularly cardiovascular mortality. And crucially, these effects weren't uniform across the board. They varied by age, sex, ethnicity, which just reinforces that we need personalized advice, not these universal one-size-fits-all fasting rules.
So, if the big benefits aren't really found in that super aggressive fasting, what's the ultimate conclusion maybe we should draw for our own routines?
Well, that raises a really interesting question for you, the listener, to think about, doesn't it? Given that this relationship is complex, it's U-shaped, it varies by subgroup, does the real value of time-based eating perhaps lie not in hitting